Light the beam, because it's time for Nerdy for 30, the podcast where we talk about nerdy-ish movies for 30-ish minutes. My name is Kevin Bauer, aka the Critic's Choice. With me, as always, is the People's Champ, Tim Keck. And today, we are talking about Gen V.
Dude, this thing is an absolute banger, like a sequel-ish, same world story. It taking place between season 3 and the upcoming season 4 of The Boys. It's basically like a college for Vought superheroes. If you're familiar with the world of The Boys, you can only imagine how fucked up it gets. It's incredible. The school's a mess. They're experimenting on people and soups, and people are crazy. I mean, it's got everything. It's great. You got to watch it. If you're not into The Boys, you know, what are you doing? You should watch it and then watch this. And I heard that this thing, we got a little stinger at the end of the season. This leads like right up to season 4 of The Boys. Like a couple days after this, season 4 starts. So this is really well enmeshed. Kevin, I think Marvel could take notes from these guys genuinely on how to world build. It does. What are your thoughts on that? Because the world somehow seems deep and small at the same time.
Sure.
But they integrate all these other characters and it feels pretty seamless. And it feels like this very much is a part of The Boys. And yet it's a completely different story. Did you like that? Did they pull it off? What can Marvel take away from that, do you think?
Largely, I really think they did. It's one of the only times where at the very end, they've shown characters from the main series. And I thought it was completely unnecessary. I didn't hate seeing them. I thought it was fun. I don't think there's ever going to be a time when I'm not happy to see Anthony Starr's Homelander. But
yeah,
it was really remarkable the extent to which they were able to carve out their own little corner of this world that I never even would have assumed that I wanted to see. If you were coming to this completely fresh, I will say there would probably be some stuff that would throw you initially. I think it would probably take you an episode or two to kind of figure out by osmosis what Vought is and kind of how this world works and the extent to which Vought has control over this world. But I think you would probably get there. And as someone coming into it after watching the first 3 seasons of The Boys, boy, oh boy, does this do a great job of playing this world that's already been established and deepening it. Tim, they brought back the guy who was working on the Dawn of the Seven movies to be a theater professor at this college because he got canceled. It's incredible satire.
I loved it. It's great. It's so good. The satire is top notch, and it feels so poignant. And just every second, it's a commentary on. I mean, it is a satire. It is a direct commentary on so many things all the time. I just started rewatching like the first episode before the pod.
Yeah.
And they're even doing like, you know, the principal dies or whatever. And then they're like, people are mourning for him, but then they have a girl who's like elastic or something who actually extends her arm like a selfie stick to video herself crying and then pulls it back in to check the video. Just completely faking it. And it's like, there's stuff like that all the time where it's like, wow, that's like a great takedown of influencer culture. I mean, a lot of this is all about influencers. It is crazy in this that they treat actual superhero work and being an actor, influencer, celebrity equally. I mean, this college has 2 schools. There's only 2. It's like Lamplighter's School of Fighting, and then so-and-so's. You could be on Dancing with the Stars if you go to this one. And they're interchangeable as far as like celebrity goes and whatnot. It's a wild world they've created.
It really is.
The Boys, it seems like lately, I think last time we talked about season 3, it felt like it kind of not running out of steam, but it seems like it's coming to a head. And it seems like Karl Urban, Anthony Starr, Butcher, and Homelander, at some point, one of them is going to die and the series is going to change. And when Homelander dies, I think that was our big takeaway last time, was like, when Homelander dies, the show's over. And I don't feel that way anymore. Necessarily. They've kind of come up with this whole thing. I mean, if he dies, then they can do a whole story about the power vacuum that this leaves and like figure out how that occurs with everything. I thought the Homelander of this show actually, I think he's still had a huge impact on the show, and the way he was integrated into it, I still liked. What do you think about like Homelander's like influence on this stuff?
Love it, man. He just kind of lurks in the background. And that's the relationship that most of us have with talking about giant pop culture figures, you know, like thinking about him, like the way they talk about him is the same way that everybody talked about Christopher Nolan in the build up to Oppenheimer being released and the aftermath and people's reactions to it. I mean, it's just, it's so unbelievably well done. And their ability to consistently create new villains with really compelling stories in this show is phenomenal. I mean, Soldier Boy was done so well. Soldier Boy is probably like second only to Homelander in terms of quality of these characters they've created. And then in this, the Dean, absolutely terrifying. Everything they're doing with the virus downstairs, they find so many great ways to spin all these twists and turns and so many ways to keep making things more fucked up. How do they keep finding ways to make everything more fucked up than it was previously?
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And it does seem like they're like, okay, well, now what do we do with the show? And then they just introduce a new superhero who is just incredibly fucked up in a new way. And they're like, okay, this is a season. You know, they did it with with the Nazi girl that was like Homelander's girlfriend.
She might be, honestly, she might overtake Soldier Boy. That was a terrific arc.
The two of them are incredible. I feel like I need to rewatch The Boys. I think Homelander kind of is the Boys' world in the sense that the world revolves around him. Yeah. And it seems like they can't regulate these people the way they would like to, these soups, the way they would like to, because Homelander exists. And I've always thought that was interesting. It seems like, you know, you just take some juice. Carl Urban takes a shot of something, and all of a sudden he's like as strong as Homelander. It's weird. I was like, why aren't there more Homelanders? And then we watched Gen V, to bring it to Gen V, and these people's powers, some of them kind of suck. Yeah. Like the main girl's, Marie Moreau, like it grows and becomes truly formidable. But at the beginning, she is literally cutting herself and spilling blood and sacrificing a piece of her in order to what? Like throw something at a trash can? Like what? It's wild. And then by the end, she evolves into this thing. And even the guy who was supposed to be like Golden Boy, Luke, the new Homelander, he's being juiced by his brother, who I guess is like psychotic and insane. And they're taking his stuff to superpower Luke, so they can't even create a Homelander. Like Homelander seems like that much more of a commodity and that much of like a 1 in a million chance. It's like Soldier Boy, it's Homelander, and then Carl Urban when he takes a shot. And that's like the top tier of superheroes in this world, I guess. It's crazy. What do you think of like the powers in this stuff?
I mean, it's amazing. I love so much. I think we've talked about this in the past. As a teenager reading these different comics, I was such a sucker for anything that featured like young heroes. So like when we were in high school, there was a run on X-Men that featured like a brand new crop of teenage heroes that were getting tutored. I was huge into Teen Titans in junior high and high school. You know, like the Young Justice cartoon after that, like it kind of has engendered in me this like love for the trainee aspect, because you get like any kind of a trainee story. There's the fun of wondering which of these characters might actually kind of graduate up into being like a top tier, like Justice League or Avengers member later. But then you also get to watch these kids that oftentimes have these really fucking strange, unconventional superpowers, make a lot of mistakes and either realize that their powers are not going to do it for them or figure out really creative ways to use these powers. And it's so cool to see kids with like these like really weird powers, like Little Cricket figure out like, hey, okay, so if purging a lot of food makes me shrink, what if I eat a shitload of food and then get huge? Like, it's so cool to watch that discovery aspect.
Her arc is wild. And I just read Jeanette McCurdy's book, like, I'm glad my mom died. And one of the things that she struggled with was bulimia and throwing up and this pressure to be thin and like to be this person. And man, it just like really hit home in conjunction with the Emma character of how absolutely brutal this is. Marie Moreau has an incredibly tragic backstory where she developed her powers, literally puberty, and that killed her parents and estranged her from her sister and basically destroyed any sense of family she has. And yet Emma's story was the most heartbreaking to me, where she just like needed approval and she keeps looking for support and for somebody to have her back. And she keeps being let down. And the whole purging thing is like so fucked. It's so fucked up. And the whole relationship with food, and she wants to be an influencer and a celebrity. Like, she's wild. And I have to say, the acting in this is good. It's good. All the boys, people are good. Lizzie Broadway, who plays Emma, and Jazz Sinclair, who plays Marie, are stars. I mean, they're incredible. Like, they're incredible. I think they're phenomenal. Everyone else is good, but they're wild. They're on another level, I think.
I'm right there with you, man. I think they're the two standouts. I do think that Jazz Sinclair had the harder job in this series because she had to anchor this whole thing that people had this big connection to. She had to be able to play off of this tragic backstory without going too far into melodrama and navigate being the audience surrogate, where she's asking all these questions while still being an interesting character. And she thread that needle beautifully. She was so cool, so fun to watch. I was really, really, really drawn to her. And I'm so excited to see all these people again if they do end up showing up in season 4 of The Boys. Like, I could not be more thrilled to see them mix it up with Huey and the rest of the main cast.
They've got to do another Gen V. I think they deserve it, and they should be involved in some way in season 4. I think the two actors we're talking about, I mean, they're the meatiest roles, and they're the ones with the worst powers. And then over the arc of the show, they get better at them. But they're freshmen. They're the freshmen in this group. So literally, they're the newest to this school, and all the people they're hanging with have better control of their powers, and they're all older and they've been in school longer. And it's weird to see this. I mean, again, you know, Carl Urban takes a shot and he's as strong as Homelander. We really haven't seen the evolution of any of these guys. It seems like they're all presented to us like they are what they are. And now we're finally seeing people who are learning to get better and improve and treat it like a real thing. Can we do some beefs and thieves? We've been talking about
maybe this goes into beefs and thieves. Maybe it doesn't. I do want to bring this up real quick. You asked me what I thought about the powers. We started talking about the powers, but we kind of got distracted. So I do want to go over some of these powers that we saw real quick. Just a blitz back and forth. First up, the llama. Was the llama just a llama? Is that person like
the llama's just a llama
Grimm thing style? It's not a human being. It's just a llama. Or can that person go back and forth?
You think that's a person?
They were addressing it. They were addressing it. I forget what the llama's name was, but they were addressing it as though it was a person.
Wow. Maybe their Gen V power was like, you know, to turn into be a llama. I don't know. They don't change. I was kind of shocked when the invisible guy turned back to a visible naked dude.
Yeah, same here. I thought it was going to be a stunt casting. I was like, this is going to be like Haley Joel Osment or something. Like, it's definitely going to be like a person that we recognize.
I also just assumed that they were always going to be invisible. Like, that's just who they are and what they do. You know, like, this is a punishment because they're invisible all the time. And then you're like, okay, well, what kind of a human being would want to be invisible all the time? And by the way, their clothes don't get invisible. They got to be ass naked to be invisible. So this is somebody who enjoys walking around, you know, bumping into stuff, spying on people. Like, this guy's a creep. And they're doing a good job of portraying the powers like as the people. And it's great. I think powers wise, Jordan Lee kind of goes into my beefs a little bit. There's the character of Jordan who switches genders, which is a great move. And the genders, I was watching it and I was like, well, they have to have different powers. And I couldn't really put my finger on it, so I had to Google it after. But the feminine Jordan has like the push power, like the beam. And then the masculine Jordan is like indestructible. So he's the defense and she's the offense. So in the scenes where they get punched really hard and it like Jordan's like, and they're like punching him, just standing up to him, it's the male version. And then on offense, it's the female version. And then between them, they're both indestructible, healing all this other stuff. But that seemed to be the distinction, which was weird. I thought it was maybe a little too subtle, honestly. But I'm glad they're not like spoon feeding this to us. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, I'd rather have it that way. I will say the first time any kind of like a force power showed up for Jordan, I was like, oh, okay. So there's other powers too. I kind of just thought that they could shapeshift, but all right, sweet.
I love that idea a lot. The actors look similar enough that it works. I was so bummed when the dude showed up. Every time I was like, oh. Like the girl, what's her name? Like London Thor. She's got an amazing name. It is like London Thor or something. And the guy I just like didn't appreciate as much. I thought the girl was fantastic. And then they switch back to the dude and I'm like, okay, I guess, I think they kind of knew it too. And it seems like she gets the majority of the good lines and like carries most of the weight and like emotional convo. And the guy, they kind of acknowledge it that like the masculine version presents himself when he's trying to intimidate people and be more intimidating and like, get them to do what he wants. But yeah, that was like a little beef, was just, a little bit of a deep sigh every time they changed. So I was like, I don't want to see this dude again. Who gives a shit about this guy? The girl's great. The actress is great.
I totally agree. She definitely classes him. What an interesting thing to play with, though. The idea, like you mentioned, where they put up the masculine front anytime they want to intimidate someone. Like, it makes me think of, I heard that the subway announcements, it's that any kind of a command is the male voice, but any kind of an instructional announcement is the female voice, because the psychology is presented by the female. And the fact that so many voice assistants for these different AI apps default to being female, the gender power dynamics of that are fascinating and often just straight up misogynistic. And it's cool to see. This is why I'm saying, like, The Boys is playing with this kind of stuff. They're really using the advantages that being the superhero genre and being kind of a fantasy sci-fi allow them to work in. What other show can do that? What other show can have a character literally shapeshift? Harry Potter's not doing it. J.K. Rowling's not signing off on Harry Potter doing any kind of a like non-binary character. It's awesome that they're using the materials that they have.
It's great. I mean, it's great satire. I mean, it also reminds me, I feel like there was like a little bit of a backlash when all of the like conservatives online like simultaneously realized that Homelander was like a Trump parody. And like they've been watching like 2 seasons of the show and like hadn't realized it, I think, until the Nazi girl showed up and they're like, oh, you're the Aryan race, and they're all of a sudden like, wait, are they making fun of us? And they're like, all of a sudden, I don't know what it is about like Nazis or racists where like conservatives are all of a sudden like, oh, they're talking about us. You don't need to own that. What is that?
I've always been really interested about with like South Park, where I feel like I used to see a lot when I was still on Facebook, where people would have no idea when South Park was making fun of them to their face, and they would take the satire at face value and proudly assume it is part of their identity.
Yeah.
Just fascinating to have something go over your head so far that you become proud of it.
Man, I would love for that to happen with me at some point. I want maybe somebody listening to this can write in and be like, actually, you moron, this whole thing is talking about how stupid Tim Keck is. It's like, what? That's what this message. That's what Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg were working on, was just to tell me to fuck off. This is amazing. By the way, Marvel should be talking to those guys. They get it.
They are too good for Marvel at this point. They need to stay far away and just keep doing the shit that they're doing. We were talking about franchises we would love to see them tackle. I remember you saying Power Rangers. Fully stand by that. I would love to see their take on pretty much any of these properties. We brought up Power Rangers last time. We brought up Animorphs last time. I also thought it would be really cool to see them tackle Street Sharks. I know they just did Ninja Turtles, and they did a great job doing like a very earnest Ninja Turtles movie, all things considered, with a lot of heart. And I would love to see them take the piss out of the thing that they just did with heart with Street Sharks.
Street Sharks is such a dumb premise, too. It's like, it's so stupid. They swim under the street. Like, it doesn't make any sense. There's no water. There are, millions in property damage.
Yeah.
One of these guys think they're in Lethal Weapon. That's crazy.
They don't care, dude. They're tough. They're tough.
You got any other beefs?
Let's see. Oh, beefy. It's hard to think of anything that's a beef. I do wonder this. I wonder the extent to which they feel pressured to have some things that are kind of gimmies in terms of shock value. So the dicks in this. We had an exploding dick. We had a real big dick.
And whatever, the fire boy gets punched in the dick.
Oh yeah. That was pretty wild. A little bit of jiggle physics there. Yeah. Look, I get it. I'm not like mad. Like, how dare you make me look at a penis? Just from the sake of like, kind of show me something I haven't seen yet, because it's going to be, I think, pretty damn near impossible for them to top the exploding dick scene in The Boys season 3. Yeah. I mean, I watched that episode of the show in the morning, and then I went out to get donuts. And the guy who was working at the counter at the donut shop, somehow the boys came up and he was like, man, you see the dick scene? And it's like, yeah, I fucking saw the dick scenes bringing people together because it was so insane. And that's what we go to the boys for. But after that, it's like, I don't know. It feels like they're kind of trying to cash in on like, can you believe how outrageous it is that we're showing male genitalia? And it's easy shock. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's definitely lowbrow moments in it, which again makes sense, I think, for Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. Like they love a little lowbrow in there mixed in.
The devil getting his dick cut off, and this is the end.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that, and it makes sense. I don't know. Yeah, it feels a little one note sometimes. Mm-hmm. But they keep coming up with new ways to do it. There's a fire punch dick. An exploding dick is insane. Yeah. It's also such a good progression of her character. Like, it makes sense how she develops these things, and it's moments of stress. And in a moment where a guy is trying to do unsavory things to her, she lashes out and explodes his penis. Perfectly tracks for how she's developed her powers initially. Yeah. And it just kind of, I don't know. It seems like a very interesting character arc as far as like, yeah, doing the whole blood thing. I also feel like the blood is such a good superpower. I mean, it made me think of Avatar, and the blood bending in that, where like some of the waterbenders can bend blood.
The Last Airbender, not the James Cameron franchise.
Yeah, no, the blue one with the aliens and how they would like swim in the water and cut themselves. I don't know. The cartoon with Aang and Katara learned how to blood bend, and it was very evil and gross, and it was kind of used as a tool of like, oh, it's disgusting. You can control people and all of that. It seems weird that could be a superhero in the 7. How that would even work. I guess Black Noir is in there as like the stealth, but I guess they're selling him as like a ninja or something kind of cool. But his whole thing is kind of stealth. Mm-hmm. And it seems like, if anything, she's going to end up being an assassin, right? That seems like where she's going. She's either going to be a medic of some kind or a straight up just killer of people. I think there's no in between. What is she going to do? Like, if a building collapses, is she going to use the people crushed under the rubble, like use their blood to prop up the building or something? Like, what? How could she? I don't know how she really helps in a lot of situations other than, you know, being an EMT. And at the end, her using all the blood. I was thinking about that the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was wondering why she wasn't more innovative up top, but I think it's also she was really scared of it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. She hadn't stepped into that part where she could own it yet. I know they talked a little bit in the show, too, about kind of whether or not she would fit in the 7, whether she would appeal to the Midwest with blood powers, because it is kind of gross. It's funny you mentioned medic, because that's exactly what I figured her like superhero call sign would be. Obviously, you know, Bloody Mary's right there. I think they bring that up in the show.
Bloody Marie is great.
Yeah, medic or something. And you kind of frame it as like she's there. She's like a support player. She's stopping the bleeding for people. And
yeah, that's how you present her. And then in the back, she's just slitting throats.
just blood katanas. Do you think, real quick on the note of Marie, and I guess all of the very serious topics, I mean, this show touches on like date rape and sexual assault and self-harm and, you know, anorexia, bulimia. Do you think this show did a good enough job giving the appropriate level of seriousness to these things? Or do you think that it was kind of punching above its weight class a little bit?
I kind of think it's fine. I don't know, but I think I'm pretty desensitized as like a comedy adjacent person, or at least the way I've done comedy. It's like I'm pretty desensitized to all this stuff, and I really have to think about it more afterwards to be like offended or whatever, just as a natural impulse.
I mean, that's a classic stand-up trait, is that kind of like that level of removal from anything that allows you to kind of take a step back and joke about it.
Yeah, if I know it's an art piece, or at least an attempt at like a thing somebody's created, I can be very insensitive to that and just see it for what it is. So I think it kind of worked, and I think maybe part of it is that it all felt real, and whether or not it's presented in the best way, I don't even think that's necessarily. It's certainly something they talked about, and that's certainly the point of it. But I think the presenting these things in a real way with real characters who are experiencing these things that you can relate to, that are fully flushed out human beings going through this, I think that's a win in a lot of cases. To have, I mean, when we get the moment that Emma grows on her own and just smashes somebody, it's going to be so empowering and so cool and so badass after she's been kicked so many times and let down and, you know, disappointed by people. When she finally masters her powers, it's going to be a real moment. And I think part of that is, you know, whatever trauma and things she went through and all of that. So I think it's accurate more than maybe more than represented well. Why? You brought it up. So you obviously think they're punching above.
No, I'm right there with you. I think any weaknesses they have, or any times when they may have fallen short, I think are made up for by the fact that they made the attempt and that they were willing to dive in and try to tackle some of these themes in a superhero franchise where I don't know of any other superhero franchises doing this kind of stuff. So it may be, for a lot of people, the only piece of media they're taking in, if they only take in like superhero stuff and anime, that's really dealing with this and trying to grapple with these themes on a serious level and play into what they do with the main cast of characters. So I thought it was really interesting that they took the shot.
We didn't even touch on the whole superiority theme, which is kind of running into this and clearly is going to bleed into season 4, where these soups are not being treated correctly. And some of them respond by looking for a diplomatic solution or peace. And the other half are pissed off and want to revolt and take matters into their own hands and view themselves as superior. And that can be mapped on every ism there is that's currently going on in our country or has happened. I wanted to say a thief of mine we didn't really mention oh gosh, what's his name? The crazy brother who's downstairs, Sam.
Yeah.
When he's awesome. He's so cool. I love that he's just a gigantic badass. He's probably, I was trying to figure out his like power level. It seems like he's susceptible to some things like electricity. I think they get him with electricity a couple times. Otherwise, he's maybe Homelander strong. Or at least I saw online somebody theorized that he's Maeve equivalent, where he can jump as far as Maeve. He's like at her strength level, which is a big deal for any of these guys. Awesome.
Sure.
And then when he is cutting to fight scenes with the puppets, and even when he sees puppets during sex, it is it is incredible. It's simultaneously incredible and such a fun choice, and also like truly fucked up. It is at the same time. It's equally funny and interesting and fucked up if you think about it. That he just can't have he just can't view people as like real things. As real human beings all the time. Even this woman that he's super into, who is there, he's having an intimate experience with, she looks like a puppet to him. That's crazy. That's so fucked. It's wild. Oh my God. What a choice too. What a wild choice that they just cut to that. And I think they've done some musical stuff in The Boys, and they've made some fun choices to work things in, usually through a character's point of view. And this is just another example of like a huge swing, and it crushes. It's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. I don't think we
Thief.
get here without Black Noir's like cartoon dissociation in season 3. Yeah. And I'm so glad we got here because it's goddamn, dude. They're not just making a really great show. They're having fun doing it. The puppet
they're pushing the boundaries of stuff. Creatively, aside from all the dicks, which even the dicks, they're coming up with new ways to destroy penises.
They're innovating,
they're always
Tim.
Pushing the boundary.
They got their dev team down in the basement. They're working day in, day out to ruin some dicks. All right.
How many people are slamming in typewriters right now, like in a basement somewhere, just struggling to come up with a new dick idea? Like, it probably works for all their stuff. They probably just go down. They probably just have like a cellar with all these people trapped down there, just brainstorming dick ideas. And then whenever they make something, they head down to the cellar. They unlock one of them and they say, "What do you got?" And then they're like, "Cool, we'll throw that in there." Does Invincible have dick stuff? I feel like it should. If it doesn't, it doesn't really.
Probably will at some point. Yeah, I think it's exactly the Woods. They just have this basement where everybody's dedicated to this one thing. Everybody's got like a Beautiful Mind style corkboard up on the walls, except it's all in SFW. It's just it's dicks all the way down.
The Woods is inspired by their writer's basement. Dude, they're just writing what they know.
It is because Seth wrote the scene in Superbad where Jonah's obsessed with dicks. Yeah. This goes so far back, Tim.
Oh man, it's so funny.
Wow.
Dicks are funny. I don't know what it's so much funnier than vaginas aren't funny. It's just not the same. Dicks look so weird. I don't know what it is. I do know what it is. It's just they look dumb. Dicks look so dumb. They're so stupid. They're so invasive. They're always out there. They're funny. They're fun. I want to see some more dicks blown up. Let's do it. Let's see what comes. Where are they going to take it? What dick event are we going to see? I mean, we even got a cameo from Love Snake or whatever that guy's name is. The dude who has like the monster snake penis. Like he got a little cameo in this, and it's like maybe the most effed up thing. Can you imagine you give your kid V and you're like, maybe he'll be Homelander, and instead, like 13 years old, he comes out of the bathroom, dick first, with a sand snake, like a Beetlejuice reference or whatever. Like that, like the thing that killed Beetlejuice. Yeah. It's in his pants. Well,
absolute nightmare. Horrifying. This is the most traumatic thing that I could possibly picture. Tim, Gen V, it's a great show.
It's a great show. Everyone should watch.
I'm so happy with what we ended up getting. I was so nervous going into this. I'm so happy. Listener, what do you think? Do you agree? Is Gen V awesome? Does it live up to the boys? Let us know. Send us an email, nerdyfor30@gmail.com. We will be back here again with an early episode on Tuesday talking about Loki season 2. And then we'll be back that next Thursday talking about the Marvels. We will see you then. Until then, thanks for listening. Stay nerdy, everybody. Bye.
Stay nerdy. Bye. Do we have to do Loki?
Yeah, we do. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.